I only spent 1,500 yuan on emergency treatment. But before I even made it out of the operating room, my parents had already called me over a dozen times. Who gave you permission to spend that much money? We didn't raise you to be a leech. And with that, they canceled all my cards. I had no money for the hospital stay, so I dragged my sick body and walked 20 kilometers back home. When I reached the front door, I realized the entire villa was dazzling in its grandeur. My parents and sister were hosting a birthday party for their adopted son. The cake alone was a custom-made one worth 2.99 million yuan. I didn't make a scene like I used to. Instead, I wrote an IOU, then turned and left. I stood alone by the window, cold wind biting at my face. Watching the grand party inside the villa, the warm yellow lights spilled out, only to be swallowed by the cold night. My hands rested on the snow-covered windowsill, like a thief spying on someone else's warmth. Yet clearly, I was their biological son. The party had reached the cake-cutting ceremony. I watched as my brother and his fiancée pushed out a cake taller than a person. And I froze. It was the 2.99 million yuan Black Swan custom cake. I clenched the snow on the windowsill in my hand. Clearly, I only used 1,500 yuan from my father's credit card and was scolded for it. Clearly, I walked 20 kilometers because I had no money. I hadn't eaten anything for 10 hours. Here I was, their biological son, standing outside, cold and starving, while Song Jian was dressed in a custom-made Hermes suit, surrounded by family, happily making a birthday wish. The pain in my stomach was unbearable. I grabbed a handful of snow and shoved it into my mouth. The biting cold kept me from passing out. I pushed open the door and walked into the party. No one noticed me. Everyone was dressed in gowns, twirling and dancing in the ballroom. No one would spare a glance at a student fresh out of the hospital. I casually grabbed a small cake and ate it. I planned to head straight to my room afterward. But then, bang, I bumped into someone. Looking up, it was my fiancée, Shen Yuan. She had clearly stepped in front of me on purpose. Her face was displeased. Where have you been? Don't you know it's your brother's birthday today? She glanced at my school uniform and frowned. You didn't even bother to wear formal attire. Are you trying to embarrass a yen on purpose? My stomach was empty, and my mood was already sour. Hearing her words, I scoffed coldly. So what? The party's been going on without me, hasn't it? Besides, it's not like you don't know. The family only ordered a suit for Song Jian. Ever since that incident, any expense over 50 yuan has to be reported. As for formal attire, I wouldn't even dare to think about it. She froze for a moment, as if she had just realized something. But the recognition faded quickly. Still, a yen was looking for you before the party started. You kept him waiting for so long. You owe him an apology. Apologize to him? I burst out laughing, turning my head to look at Song Jian sitting on the sofa across from me. I smirked sarcastically. Funny how I didn't receive a single message from him. On the contrary, I called the house landline several times, only for my calls to be mysteriously cut off. Song Jian seemed to notice what was happening, suddenly rushing over to hug me. Brother, where did you go? I was so worried about you. His voice was full of concern and grievance, as if he had just had surgery. Not me. My father and sister wore cold expressions. When a yen was looking for you, you were nowhere to be found. Now that everyone's having fun, you decide to show up. What for? My smile was bitter. I had just come out of surgery. My parents could see from the credit card records that I spent the money on the hospital. But none of them asked how I was doing. Instead, all they did was blame me for ruining Song Jian's big moment. Shen Yuan's voice was icy. Song Jixu, apologize to a yan. Apologize? I looked at Song Jian. Why should I apologize? Song Jixu, My sister was about to say something, but I interrupted her immediately. I haven't eaten all day. I had surgery alone, and I walked 20 kilometers by myself. Not one of you asked how I was. All you care about is making me apologize to Song Ji-yeon. As I spoke, I raised my hand and pointed at Song Ji-yeon's face. If it wasn't for the food he gave me, I wouldn't have been poisoned in the first place. Slap! A sharp slap landed squarely on my face, the sound echoing throughout the hall. Everyone froze. Even the band stopped playing. Shin Yuron's slap had knocked me to the ground. My head was ringing. Have you forgotten how you almost killed a yen back then? Her eyes were filled with rage. A yen forgave you. And yet, on his 18th birthday, you dare point at him and accuse him? Everyone stared at me lying on the ground. And John, the housekeeper, glanced at my parents, then at me. Seeing that no one had any intention of helping me up, she hurriedly extended her hand to assist me. In a quiet voice, she said, "Young master." Tears welled up in my eyes. The love I received from the family I'd been with for 18 years wasn't even as much as what Aunt Jong had shown me. They were content to let everyone see me in such a humiliating state. My mother, her eyes red, scolded me. "Jiksu, we've raised you for 18 years. Out of gratitude for that, can you please not make things difficult for your brother?" "All right." Shen Yuring glanced down at me with cold indifference, stepping subtly in front of Song Ji-yeon to shield him. My sister and father wore expressions full of disgust. "Ungrateful wretch. It was because of you that a yen almost died back then. And today, on his 18th birthday, such an important occasion, all you've done is max out my credit card and enjoy yourself outside. What else are you good for? We didn't work so hard just to let you leech off us." My hand trembled as I clutched Aunt Jang's. "Aunt Jong, could you please bring me some paper and a pen?" I thought back to when I was 7. My parents brought home a little boy. They named him Song Ji-yeon. His parents had died in an accident while saving mine, so they took him in and raised him. My brother was weak and often sick, and I took care of him dutifully. One day, he came to me in tears, saying he had lost the money our parents had given him. He was afraid they would hate him for it, and asked if I could take the blame. I agreed. I thought, my brother is weak, and he's not even their biological child. If our parents were to abandon him because of this, if they threw him out, how would he survive in the future? But what I didn't know was that the money he lost was meant for his surgery. As soon as I confessed to losing the money, my sister found a brand new computer in my room. The same Song Ji-yeon who had pitifully begged me for help a moment ago suddenly burst into tears, running to our parents. How could my brother use my life-saving money to buy himself a computer? Does he resent me for taking our parents' love away from him? He sobbed, and then out of nowhere, he coughed up blood and fainted. My parents quickly borrowed money and rushed him into surgery. Once he came out safe and sound, I was punished with 3 days of solitary confinement. After that, my spending was strictly controlled. Even though the family business grew larger and more successful, and they could easily afford to spend lavishly, any expense over 50 yuan had to be approved by finance. I explained myself. I protested, but no one wanted to listen. Song Ji-yeon even knelt at my feet, crying, "Sorry, I was just afraid of being abandoned by our parents. Don't blame me." But then he'd turn around and feign illness to frame me again. For over 10 years, I was utterly exhausted, and Jong helped me to the sofa, where I wrote a 1,500 yuan IOU and pushed it toward them. "You can rest assured, this money, I'll pay it back, principal and interest, every last cent. But once I've repaid you, we're done. We'll have no more ties." Hearing that I wanted to cut ties, Song Ji-yeon's eyes lit up. My mother paused. "Jiksu, what are you saying? We're your family. What's all this talk about paying us back?" I looked at her coldly. After all, it was she who demanded I report every expense. My father's face remained stern. Don't mind him. He wants to pay us back. Let him. I stood my ground. And then he changed his tone. But do you think 1,500 yuan is enough to repay everything we've done for you? If you really have pride, pay us back for all the years we've raised you within 1 year. If you can't repay it, then you'll kneel before a yen and apologize in front of everyone. Everyone was watching this scene unfold. Many were speculating, thinking I was some outsider challenging the real family. And there stood Song Jian, dressed in luxury, protected by my sister and Shen Yiren, clearly the favored child of this family. Who would have thought that I, the biological son, had become the joke of the household? And Zhang forced a smile. Sir, the young master hasn't even taken his college entrance exams yet. Surely you don't want to pressure him this way? I stood up, clenching my fist. I won't need a year. Before the college entrance exams, I'll repay all the money I owe you. And after that, we're done for good. I looked over at Shen Yiren. You, too. It's the same. Shen Yiren frowned slightly. But in the end, she didn't say much. She bumped her fist against mine. After sealing the agreement, I immediately arranged for dormitory housing. That night, I went on the school forum and found a post I had bookmarked a while ago. It was a tutoring job post looking for talented individuals. The offer was simple. For every point you helped the child improve, you'd get 100,000 yuan. But the strange thing was, no one was willing to take the job. The comment section was filled with a wall of replies. As tempting as it sounds, the student you'd be tutoring is Liu Ryan. Seeing that name in the comments, my heart sank. If it were anyone else, I'd have taken it in a heartbeat. Liu Ryan was notorious for being a school bully. Many people, driven by the lure of 100,000 yuan per point, had tried, but they all ended up leaving in tears. Everyone said that Sister Liu and studying were sworn enemies, but I had no other choice. If I didn't raise the money quickly, I'd have to kneel before them and beg for college funds before the exams, so I accepted the job. The next day, I headed to Liu Ryan's house. As soon as I opened the door to her room, a bucket of cold water came splashing down. Fortunately, I was prepared. I stepped back, dodging it perfectly. Well, well. Soft laugh echoed behind me. A handsome guy, huh? I turned around. And there was Liu Ryan, arms crossed, leaning casually against the wall. Her face showed a faint trace of disappointment that her trick hadn't worked. All right, since you're a handsome guy, I won't bully you. She pushed open the door and walked inside. Sitting at one end of a large rectangular marble table, she pulled out a chair for me and patted it. Sit here. As soon as I sat down, the chair leg broke with a snap, and I, thud, fell straight to the ground. Liu Ryan, who had just been pretending to be serious, burst out laughing, slapping the table. What? You really believed me when I said I wouldn't bully you? She picked up her phone and started a video call, showing off my embarrassing state. Sisters, the new tutor fell for it too. Ha ha ha. Look at how pathetic he looks. Hey, my friends want to know if you can't even walk properly. Do you really know how to tutor? The phone was filled with the sound of girls laughing. I stood up, pulled over a new chair, and sat down, then calmly spread out the test papers. Do this set first. Let's see where you stand. Liu Ryan's smile faded slightly. I've done all this, and you're still not leaving? I pointed at the test papers. Do the questions. She ended the video call, propped her chin on her hand, and leaned closer to me. Why are you so persistent? Is it really just for the 100,000 yuan per point? She fell silent. After a pause, she sighed. All right. I'm sorry. I only acted that way to make you leave. I won't bully you anymore. I'll give you 100,000 yuan. And you can go. Leave. I looked at her seriously. With my skill level, I can raise your score by at least this much. I held up 5 fingers. She asked, 5 points? 50 points. Liu Ryan looked at me like she had just heard the funniest joke. To be honest, people better than you have tried. But in the end, they all left crying. Do you know why? I blinked, because I never listened to them. And you'll be no different. I'll make you listen, I said. She laughed out loud, pulling out her phone. All right then, let's see. Suddenly, I heard the notification sound from Timmy, and I paused for a moment. You're supposed to be studying. What are you doing? She didn't even lift her head. I know my parents will pay you for basic tutoring, so we'll just sit here. You'll get paid. And I'll do what I want. You can do whatever you want, and everyone's happy. With that, she put on her headphones. Ignoring anything I said from then on, I clenched my fist quietly. Though her parents would indeed pay me a basic fee, what I needed was enough to repay my debts and cover my future college tuition and living expenses. No matter what. Liu Ryan, I'm committed to this. 5 million. I'm getting that money no matter what. I sat beside her, observing for a while. I realized the only way to break through to her was through the game. So I moved behind her, watching her gameplay closely. And I had to admit, she was really good. But unfortunately, her opponent was just as skilled. She was on the verge of defeat. Just one more step. Suddenly, she became flustered. Almost there ... Critical moment. I snatched the phone from her hand. I've got this. She took off her headphones, looking at me, clearly stunned. You can play? I smirked. Watch me. I made a few slick moves, and with a perfect dodge, I took down the enemy marksman. Liu Ryan's jaw dropped in disbelief. She quickly took off the other earbud and shoved it into my ear. For the next 10 minutes, I played while she watched me with admiration. Until, well, I managed to throw the game and get all our teammates killed. The chat box exploded with rage. Li Bai, what's your problem? You were playing so well before. Now you're throwing on purpose, huh? Why don't you go throw at your mom's grave instead? Who throws in a promotion match, man? Reporting you, as the word defeat flashed across the screen. She lost a start in her ranking. Liu Ryan's face turned dark. Are you messing with me? I pointed at the broken chair. Grinning, I said, me? I always get even. Her expression looked like she'd just swallowed a fly. I leaned in, still smiling. No worries. How about this? You finish this set of practice questions, and tomorrow I'll help you win back your star. Sound good? She stayed silent. I pulled out my phone. If you don't agree, I guess I'll just log in again. Who knows, you might run into me in a match. Wouldn't that be fun? I clicked my tongue teasingly. Ooh, you're so annoying. She snatched the test papers from me and buried her head in them. She stared at the sheet for 2 hours, but didn't write a single word. When her parents came home to check her progress, she threw the blank paper at them. Here's your progress. I looked apologetically at her parents. Sorry, no progress today. I won't take any payment. That's fantastic. Liu's mother's eyes lit up, grabbing my hand. Liu's father immediately pulled out his phone and transferred 5,000 yuan to me. Here's a little extra. Anyone who can handle. My daughter deserves it. From now on, she's all yours. Liu Ryan huffed, turning to pour herself a glass of water. I was stunned by the scene. Liu's mother was nearly in tears with excitement. You actually got this little devil to sit still for 2 hours. None of her previous tutors lasted more than 20 minutes. I don't care. Next week, you must come back. Our family is sticking with you. I was dumbfounded. With the 5,000 yuan from the Liu family, my life suddenly became much more comfortable. Where I once only dared to eat budget meals on the first floor, now I could occasionally order stir-fry from the second floor, though I could have gone to the third floor for Western cuisine. I bit my tongue and held back, not just to save money, but also because the third floor was where Song Jian and Shen Yuan usually ate with their friends. I didn't want to see them. But what I hadn't expected was that while I avoided them, they would come looking for me. That afternoon, just as I was about to enter the classroom, Someone grabbed my arm from behind. Shen Yuan gave me a once-over, eyeing my new school uniform and the snacks in my hand. Her face immediately darkened. So it's true you've been taking a Yan's money. What are you talking about? I frowned. Song Jian stood behind her, his eyes red. Brother, I know you've been short on money lately. I can talk to our parents for you. But can you please not take my life-saving money? That's for my medication. How would I even know where you keep your money? You know. I told you before, I usually keep it in the hidden pocket of my backpack. That day, no one else was in the classroom, only you had been there. That's a lie. Anger surged through me. You never told me any of this. And I never even went to your classroom. Passing students began whispering. No wonder Song Jixu's been spending more lately. Turns out she's been taking a Yan's life-saving money? I knew it. I thought she was really tutoring Liu Ya for the money. Guess not. Suddenly, Liu Ryan appeared. The murmur stopped immediately. A familiar figure approached the scene. Seeing the situation, Liu Ryan raised an eyebrow, leaning in close to me. Well, the vindictive Song Jixu, finally cornered by someone else. She hadn't forgotten that I caused her to lose a star in the game. I gritted my teeth. Don't make a big deal out of it. She chuckled, then turned and walked into the classroom. Hey, I barely got a word out before Shen Yuan yanked me back. Do you even know what you're doing? A Yan nearly died because of you before. And even now, he still speaks up for you. Yet, again and again, you take his life-saving money and enjoy yourself. Do you even deserve to be his brother? A Yan may not hold you accountable, but I'll make sure you give the money back. Either kneel and apologize to him right now. Or, I scoffed. Impossible. If that money really was life-saving, and I had taken it, why isn't he dead yet? With that, I turned to leave, but the next second, I felt someone grab my arm tightly. I was forcefully yanked back, and immediately, a loud, crisp slap, smack, echoed as it landed on my face. I slammed hard against the wall, right in front of a seat in the corner, where someone stopped dead in their tracks. The side of my face felt swollen, throbbing and numb. But Shen Yuan didn't let up. Do you even realize what you're saying? I deeply regret that the childhood engagement was between you and me. If I had waited a couple more years, I would never have agreed to be engaged to you. As she spoke, she grabbed my collar, yanking roughly at my shirt. Song Jixu, I won't let a Yan die, even though I've already bought the medicine for him. I won't let you take advantage of him, not for a second. With that, she tore off my jacket, sending my school uniform buttons flying. Still not satisfied, she raked her nails across my neck, leaving deep red marks. I gritted my teeth. Let go! But she pressed closer, pinning me so I couldn't move. Go ahead, hit me. If you do, I'll accuse you of assaulting me. Around us, the whispers of our classmates filled the air. Well, this isn't exactly good. But Song Jixu really went too far. Doesn't everyone know a Yan has a congenital heart disease? As his older brother, shouldn't he be more responsible? Exactly. If I were Shen Yuan, I'd be doing the same thing. That's life-saving money. What was Song Jixu even thinking, taking that from his brother? Yeah, seriously. Taking your brother's life-saving money? SRAP. A slap landed hard on Shen Yuan's face, forcing her to stumble back several steps, only to be caught by a frantic Song Jian. Yuan, he started to speak, turning to rebuke, but froze mid-sentence when he saw who it was. Liu Ryan had stepped in front of me, her face full of disdain as she looked at the two of them. The money was given to him by me. Do you have a problem with that? Song Jian stood there, dumbfounded. Liu Ryan ignored him. She turned around, looking up at me, and gently touched my face. Does it hurt? I nodded firmly, tears immediately streaming down my face, dripping onto her hand. She hesitated for a moment. Wait, no! Don't cry. It's okay. Didn't I just help you chase them off? I didn't say anything, just kept crying. Liu Ryan bit her lip, grabbed my arm, and pulled me away. Alright, let's go to the school clinic and get the swelling down. And no more crying. Wait! Shen Yiren called after her. But her gaze was fixed on me. For some reason, I saw something complicated in her eyes. She stared at me. She said the money was from her. Is that true? I coldly replied. What's it to you? Jixu, she took 2 steps forward. But Song Jian grabbed her. Yiren, stop. Liu Ryan turned around impatiently. He's tutoring me. So I gave him the money. Instead of doubting him, why don't you go check if the money was really stolen? Or if someone with ulterior motives hid it for themselves? With that, she shot a meaningful glance at Song Jian. Liu Ryan let out a cold laugh, grabbing my arm and pulling me away. On the way to the school clinic, she held on to me, while I followed a short distance behind her. Without turning around, she asked, "You need to make money. Is it because of them?" I stammered, "Why, yes." She scoffed, "Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to look down on me." As soon as I said that, tears began to fall again, hitting the ground. The hand holding mine paused. Liu Ryan turned around, fumbling awkwardly to wipe the tears from my eyes. I wouldn't. Seeing you like this, I'd only. She hesitated, swallowing whatever she was about to say, changing the subject. Do you still have that test paper? I looked at her. She turned her head away, clearly trying to hide her embarrassment. I also want to know my real level. I wiped my eyes. I know you don't like studying. I won't force you. There are other people who need tutoring. She faltered, clearly flustered, realizing her slip up. She coughed awkwardly. It's almost time for the entrance exams. I should be getting serious too. Really? I looked at her with teary eyes. Her cheeks flushed with an inexplicable redness. Yeah, I pulled the test paper out of my bag. She probably didn't realize, but as I lowered my head, I was grinning from ear to ear. Liu Ryan, you're still too inexperienced. Do you really think I accidentally provoked Shen Yiren and got slapped unexpectedly? No. Saw you about to walk into the classroom. I had already planned the entire script. They say that tears are the best cosmetic for men. I used to not believe it, but it really works. Tears actually get results. 5 million. Here I come. After that week, Liu Ryan actually started working seriously on her test papers. Liu's parents, who once thought getting her to sit still was the biggest miracle, went straight to their ancestral shrine, burning incense and giving thanks. They said their ancestors must have blessed them. Of course, my tutoring fee also increased significantly. Now, I could regularly treat myself to meals on the 3rd floor of the cafeteria. That weekend, I decided to go home, to bring the last of my things to school. But the moment I opened the door, I saw that everyone was there. The first to notice me was Aunt Zhang, who rushed over, her face pale, whispering urgently, "Young master, why have you come back? You need to leave, quickly." But before she could finish, my father's cold voice rang out. "I was just about to look for you, and here you are, returning on your own." I froze for a moment. In the room, not only were my parents, but also my brother, Song Jian, and even Shen Yiren was there. My mother sat on the sofa, sobbing uncontrollably, while Song Jian looked pale. Shen Yiren sat beside him, her face cold and silent. My sister walked up to me with a stern expression, and Zhang quickly reached out her hand. The eldest young master. Before she could finish, a hard slap landed on my face. My head snapped to the side. She was visibly displeased. "We asked you to repay the money through proper means. Who told you to latch onto a wealthy backer? Aren't you disgracing the Song family's reputation?" I was stunned. "What are you talking about? My mother, sobbing, I sue ... If you can't repay it, then don't. But how could you go and latch onto some rich benefactor just to pay it back? A yen and Suzy went looking for you to bring you back on the right path. And you made a yen so upset he ended up in the hospital. I was even more confused. Song Jian, looking pale, cast a glance at me. It's fine. I don't blame brother. Even though what brother said the other day was harsh. As long as the family can get him back on track. I don't mind bearing a little hardship. I finally understood. After Liu Ryan stood up for me. He must have faked illness again and went to the hospital. Twisting the truth. Saying I was depending on some rich backer. And that he and Shen Yiren only came to persuade me. I let out a cold laugh. I replied, yeah, I may have said some harsh things, and I do regret it. I stepped forward, bending over to look him in the eyes. If it weren't for other things, I should have hit you right then. With that, bam, I punched Song Jian square in the face. Song Jixu! My sister screamed in shock, raising her hand to grab me. But I sidestepped and kicked her hard in the stomach. Dad! Slam! A loud smack hit the table. My father stood up and grabbed me. Are you rebelling? Seeing that he was about to slap me. I no longer had to pretend. I caught his fist and shoved him hard, sending him crashing onto the sofa. Honey! My mother cried out. Shen Yiren pulled me back slightly. Jixu! Slap! I slapped her in return. Who said you could touch me? My father, gritting his teeth. You ungrateful brat. I've raised a dog for 18 years, and at least it wags its tail at me. But there's not a shred of gratitude in you. I let out a cold laugh. Raised me? Did you really? With that, I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of cash. One bundle after another. I laid them out on the table. A total of 15 stacks. That's 150,000 yuan. To repay your kindness in raising me. My parents and sister were frozen in place. My father frowned deeply. Impossible. We raised you for 18 years. How could it only be 150,000? I laughed. Ever since I was 7. When you thought I stole Song Jian's surgery money. The accountant only gave me 300 yuan a month for living expenses. Even in high school, it didn't increase. That's 3,600 yuan a year. Over 18 years, that adds up to 64,800 yuan. I know you spent more on me before I turned 7. But when I was a kid, the family wasn't wealthy. You didn't spend much on me at all. Even adding the expenses from before I was 7, it doesn't add up to more than 100,000. As I spoke, I pulled out a stack of forms. These are the requests I've submitted over the past decade for anything costing over 50 yuan. You thought I was a gold digger. Not a single one was approved. So I could only take the maximum allowance of 50 yuan, which adds up to 33 requests, for a total of 1,650 yuan. For 18 years, I've lived in this house. Consider it rent. My room is a converted attic. In this neighborhood, let's say that's 2,000 yuan a month. That's 36,000 yuan over 18 years. As for my tuition fees, I took out student loans. As for food expenses in this house, I barely ever ate at home. Altogether, it doesn't even add up to 10,000. So by all accounts, 150,000 is more than enough. Oh, and one more thing. I remembered something else. I pulled out another 1,500 yuan from my wallet and placed it separately. Almost forgot. This is the 1,500 yuan I spent on surgery last time. With that, I pushed the pile of cash forward. The debt of raising me. Consider it paid off as of today. From now on, we're severing all ties. Impossible. My father looked at the stack of cash, muttering, impossible. We raised you for 18 years. It can't be just this little. I placed the stack of 50 yuan request forms in front of him. His eyes suddenly reddened. My mother's tears fell freely. She clung to my father's arm. Honey, Did we really only spend this much on her? My sister kept flipping through the request slips. For cold medicine. For a scarf. For a small birthday cake. She clenched the forms tightly in her hand. Perhaps they finally realized that in 18 years, they spent less on me than one of Song Ji-yeon's cakes. The atmosphere in the hall became somber. I grabbed my bag and turned to leave, when a hand suddenly caught my arm. I turned around. Shen Yiren was looking at me. Where are you going? Back to school. Wait. She tightened her grip. My parents want to meet you. Shen Yiren. I pried her hand off. We already made a deal when we bumped fists. Now that I've repaid all the money, our engagement is null and void. Jiksu, my mother spoke up. That was all just a joke. We never actually meant for you to repay us. She hurriedly waved to Aunt Zhang. Hurry and give the money back to him. But I took a step back, coldly looking at her. You only say that because I've paid you back. But if I hadn't, I know you would have made me kneel and apologize to Song Ji-yeon. Jiksu, my sister's voice was tinged with tears. We won't make you report your expenses anymore. Let's have a meal together. Even my father seemed to realize something. Oh, right. Your 18th birthday already passed, didn't it? Well then, tonight we'll celebrate it belatedly. We'll get you a cake like the one Ayan had last time. What kind would you like? Song Ji-yeon quickly chimed in, putting on a considerate front. I really like the flavors from that place. I can recommend a few for you. What flavor do you like? Everyone looked at me expectantly, but they didn't even know my favorite flavor after 18 years. Yet they could rattle off all of Song Ji-yeon's preferences. The sudden wave of guilt only made me feel nauseous. Clenching my bag, I turned and walked away. Jiksu, my mother ran after me in tears. It was my fault. I shouldn't have suggested you report your expenses. I'm sorry, Jiksu. From now on, I'll give you just as much money. Please don't go, okay? She grabbed my hand, examining it carefully. What surgery were you talking about? How are you now? Was 1,500 enough? And John, hurry and make some chicken soup for the young master to help him recover. Even my father stood up. Why don't we take you to the hospital now to check everything? Don't bother. I coldly pulled my hand back. I no longer need it. With that, I opened the door and walked out briskly, never looking back. I never returned home. My parents and sister frequently waited at the school gate to pick me up. But each time the teacher relayed their messages, I was using my studies as an excuse. Sometimes, I'd see their car still parked outside the school late at night. When they spotted me, their faces would light up with a flicker of hope. But every time, I'd turn my head and walk away. Shen Yiren would come to the classroom entrance every few days, often bringing small gifts for me. She would look at me. Jiksu, I have nothing to do with Ayan. The only fiancé I've ever acknowledged is you. Is that so? Liu Ryan passed by, shoving all the gifts back at her. Do you dare say that again in front of Song Ji-yeon? Shen Yiren lowered her eyes. He's in the hospital. I froze, she explained. After you left, we were desperately searching for you. But then his old illness relapsed. I could tell. He was faking it. But since he always believed you took his life-saving money, I thought it was understandable for him to act this way. This time, when we ignored him, he actually slit his wrists. I closed my eyes for a moment. Perhaps my family all thought the same way, but not a single one of them ever bothered to investigate the truth. You should be taking care of him, not trying to win me over, I said, turning to head back into the classroom. She tried to say something else, but Liu Ryan blocked her. Sorry, sweetheart. Jiksu needs to tutor me. Don't hold him up from making money. She shut the classroom door. Time flew by, and before I knew it, it was the day after the college entrance exam results came out. I was at the Liang family's house, waiting with them around the computer. The results shocked me. I had only expected her to improve by 50 points, but she had jumped by 210 points, scoring just a point shy of 700. It turned out she had been hiding her true abilities all along, fooling even her own parents. I started calculating on my fingers. 210 points. That's 21 million. You're that amazing. Why did you even hire a tutor? She smiled. I'm just not interested in this stuff. But she leaned closer to me. Going to the same university as you isn't so bad either. She chuckled. No one celebrated your 18th birthday, so consider this 21 million my gift to you. I quickly waved my hands. No need. 5 million is more than enough. I don't want to bankrupt your family. But she burst out laughing. Don't worry. Even if I scored 750, they'd still be able to pay. That very day, Liu's mother rushed to their ancestral tomb to honor their ancestors. She turned around and handed me a gold card. Then she gave a black card to her daughter. You two have worked hard. Go travel wherever you want. From now on, I won't have to take care of any kids anymore. Saying this, she turned to pack her luggage. In high spirits, she and Dad went abroad for vacation. I did have plans to travel after the exam, but I didn't expect to have Liu Ryan as my companion. For the past 2 months, my phone hadn't stopped ringing with calls from home. I directly blocked them. On the day of registration, I saw some familiar faces waiting at the airport. Mom's eyes were red. Jiksu, we've sent Song Ji-yeon away. The last time he cut his wrists, he hurt himself badly. He didn't even take the college entrance exam, but we sent him away anyway. Can you come back now? I looked at them coldly. No! My sister and father were clearly flustered. Jiksu, we know we were wrong. From now on, you will be the only young master of the Song family. Whatever amount of money you need, we'll give it to you. Okay, too late. I don't need it anymore. Not the family's love, nor the money. I thought to myself, if they had done this earlier, I might have turned back. But some things once missed are just missed forever. I would no longer be a son of the Song family. Turning away, I followed Liu Ryan onto the plane. Even after the plane took off, they still stood there unwilling to leave. I stared through the window at where they had stood. Liu Ryan turned my head towards her. She placed a piece of orange in my mouth. Stop looking. It's pointless. I bit into the orange. She was right. My future is vast and free. End of story.